You cannot step twice into the same river. Almost everyone has heard this timeless statement. The philosopher who said it is Heraclitus, known as the weeping philosopher. Heraclitus was highly praised by the great philosopher Hegel as the true dialectical philosopher. His thoughts also significantly influenced the renowned Stoics, and even the Gospel of John in Christianity bears traces of his philosophy. Before we explore Heraclitus's philosophical ideas in depth, let's first understand why he is called the weeping philosopher. All men sleep, but I am awake. Around 540 BCE, Heraclitus was born into a noble family in the ancient Greek city of Ephesus, modern-day Turkey. His lineage was exceptionally prominent, with generations involved in political and religious leadership within the polis. As a youth, Heraclitus received a traditional aristocratic Greek education, including poetry, music, mathematics, politics, and philosophical instruction. However, Heraclitus developed a passion for independent thinking and a unique perspective on the nature of reality. He boldly criticized even the most respected intellectual figures of his time. He condemned the poet Homer for promoting the worship of gods and misleading the masses. He attacked the philosopher Pythagoras, claiming that although he was knowledgeable, he lacked true insight into the nature of things. He also dismissed the poet Hesiod as shallow in understanding. Heraclitus famously stated, "Although this logos is always so, men fail to understand it." Heraclitus felt profoundly alone, like a solitary figure in the depths of a long night, where all others lay asleep, and he alone remained awake. Oracular Philosophy. Heraclitus was not only unconventional in his ideas, but also in his way of communicating with the world. His style of expression is often described as oracular philosophy, a mode of speaking inspired by the Delphic oracle. At the foot of Mount Parnassus in central Greece stood the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, one of the most sacred religious and political centers in ancient Greece. It was revered as the omphalos, the navel or center of the world. City-states and individuals would consult the oracle before making major political, military, or personal decisions. The Pythia, a female priestess, would enter a trance-like ecstatic state induced by incense fumes, during which she would utter cryptic or symbolic messages believed to be divine revelations. These utterances were then interpreted and translated into verse by male priests. The resulting Delphic oracles were often ambiguous, metaphorical, and open to multiple interpretations. One famous account recorded by the historian Herodotus tells of Croesus, king of Lydia, who asked the oracle whether he should wage war against Persia. The oracle replied, "If you cross the Halys River, you will destroy a great empire." Croesus misread the message, believing it foretold his victory, only to bring about the destruction of his own empire by the Persians. But for Heraclitus, this mode of cryptic, layered expression mirrored his understanding of the world. He believed that nature loves to hide, and just as divine truth is concealed, so too is the truth of reality. He famously wrote, "The Lord whose oracle is at Delphi neither speaks nor conceals, but gives a sign." In Heraclitus's view, truth cannot be conveyed through straightforward language. The purpose of language is not to explain the logos, but to awaken rational reflection. For him, the ultimate principle that governs all things is logos, often interpreted as the law of nature or reason itself, which cannot be directly spoken, only approached through thoughtful engagement. Based on this principle, it is not hard to imagine just how obscure and difficult Heraclitus's language would be. Isolated in thought and alienated from society, Heraclitus both despised political corruption and lamented the ignorance of the masses. Rejecting the political privileges offered by his aristocratic lineage, and even turning down an invitation from the Persian king Darius, he chose a life of seclusion. He withdrew from society, retreating into the mountains where he lived alone, subsisting on wild herbs, growing old in solitude with only the Logos as his companion. According to ancient sources, in his old age, Heraclitus suffered from dropsy, edema, a condition characterized by severe bodily swelling due to fluid retention. When he sought medical help, and the physicians inquired about his symptoms, he replied in his typical oracular fashion, "Can you make a drought after a flood?" The doctors were baffled and unable to offer treatment. Heraclitus, always self-reliant, decided to treat himself. Believing that the heat of cow dung might draw out the excess moisture, he covered himself with manure and lay under the sun, hoping to evaporate the water from his body. Unsurprisingly, the attempt failed, and he eventually died from his illness. In his Lives and Opinions of Eminent Philosophers, 3rd century CE, Diogenes Laertius described Heraclitus as follows: Heraclitus was solitary and withdrawn, frequently meditating on the fate of mankind and grieved at their ignorance. Thus Heraclitus entered the annals of history as the weeping philosopher, a man of profound thought, burdened by the blindness of others. Tragically, his sole-known work, On Nature, has been lost to history. What remains are over 130 surviving fragments, preserved only through citations by later authors. Yet within these cryptic sayings lies the essence of his oracular philosophy. Now, let us delve into these fragments and seek the truth hidden behind Heraclitus's veiled language. Everything flows. You cannot step twice into the same river. This well-known saying by Heraclitus is seemingly easy to understand, but remember, an oracle never speaks only at the surface level. The river here refers not only to literal water, but also symbolically to all things in the world. Thus, it is not just the river that is in constant motion, but everything in existence. Heraclitus's view stems from his doctrine of cosmic origin. In his most famous fragment, he declares, "This cosmos, the same for all, was not made by any of the gods or of men, but it always was and is and shall be, an ever-living fire, kindling in measures and going out in measures." This is a classic example of Heraclitus's oracular expression, rich in metaphor and symbolism. The phrase, "an ever-living fire," should not be taken literally as fire in the physical sense, but rather as a metaphysical force, a dynamic energy capable of reducing all things to ashes and from ashes generating all things anew. Heraclitus further explains this symbolic fire in another fragment. "All things are in exchange for fire, and fire for all things, as goods for gold and gold for goods." But what truly marks Heraclitus as a philosopher for the ages is what comes next in fragment B30. Kindling in measures and going out in measures. This reveals that the ever-living fire is not chaotic. It follows measure, an ordered process. For Heraclitus, these measures are governed by what he calls logos, the universal law or rational principle underlying all change. If we imagine this ever-living fire as a train carrying all of existence, then logos is the track it must follow, the rational, invisible structure that regulates all transformation. As he declares, "Listening not to me but to the logos, it is wise to agree that all things are one." This is the world as Heraclitus saw it, a reality in which everything flows, in which all things are in a constant state of flux, and where change itself is governed by a higher natural law, the logos. Just like water flowing within the channel of a river, the universe moves, transforms, and never rests. Moved by this insight, Heraclitus whispered the words, "You cannot step twice into the same river." And this quiet murmur, spoken 2,500 years ago, still echoes clearly today. Have you understood its oracle? unity of opposites. Heraclitus did not only propose a dual vision of the world's origin, an ever-living fire and logos, but made an even deeper contribution to philosophy. He explored the fundamental law that governs all change. Let us hear his oracle-like wisdom. Things taken together are whole and not whole, being brought together and being separated, in tune and out of tune, and from all things one, and from one all things. What opposes unites. The finest harmony is composed of things at variance. Heraclitus believed that all things are marked by difference and opposition, and it is precisely the unity of opposites that produces harmony. He further states, "War is the father of all and king of all. Some he shows as gods, others as men, some he makes slaves, others free." Here, war does not simply refer to human conflict, but symbolizes the cosmic tension and transformation inherent in all things. It is this strife and struggle between opposites that generates all becoming. Out of conflict arises balance. So he says the way up and the way down are one and the same. It is disease that makes health sweet and good, hunger satiety, weariness rest. In the circumference of a circle, the beginning and end are common. They do not understand how that which differs with itself is in agreement. Harmony consists of opposing tensions, like that of the bow and the lyre. Heraclitus's doctrine of unity through opposition had an extraordinary influence on later thought. It is widely regarded as the origin of all dialectical thinking and was especially revered by Hegel, who wrote, "Heraclitus is the originator of the dialectic, the most speculative thinker among the ancients." Everything Heraclitus says is dialectic. Inspired by Heraclitus's insight, Hegel developed his famous dialectical system of thesis, antithesis, synthesis. It is no wonder that Hegel's followers often said, without Heraclitus, there would be no Hegel. Heraclitus's philosophy of unity and opposition not only deeply influenced Hegel but also laid the foundational structure for dialectical philosophy as a whole. Logos. Just as Pythagoras coined the term philosophy, philo plus sophia meaning love of wisdom, it was Heraclitus who first introduced the term logos into the realm of philosophy. Taken from ordinary language and transformed into a profound metaphysical concept, logos became a symbol of rational structure, ultimately forming the totem of idealist philosophy. In Heraclitus's thought, logos does not merely mean speech or logic. Rather, it represents the rational structure, inner order, and eternal law that governs the cosmos. He believed that the workings of nature, physis, are not directly accessible through the senses, because nature loves to hide. He warned against relying solely on sensory perception. Eyes and ears are bad witnesses to men having barbarian souls. Only through rational reflection can one grasp the measures that the ever-living fire, the metaphor for reality's essence, follows. These measures are what he calls logos. Heraclitus urges, listening not to me but to the logos, it is wise to agree that all things are one. To understand logos and to live in accordance with it, for Heraclitus, is the mark of true wisdom. And yet, he laments the inability of people to comprehend it. Though this logos is eternal, men fail to understand it both before they have heard it and once they have heard it. With this, Heraclitus elevated logos to the status of a universal principle, the underlying order of all things, and thus laid the intellectual foundation of Western rationalism. His idea, that reason governs the universe, became the starting point for 2 millennia of Western thought. Plato understood logos as the rational path leading the soul to the realm of ideas. Aristotle conceived of it as the first cause of motion and being in the cosmos. The Stoics revered logos as a divine rational fire pervading all of nature. In Christian theology, logos was deified as the Word in the beginning, becoming flesh in the figure of Christ. Hegel developed it into the absolute spirit, asserting that history itself is the unfolding of reason, logos. Thus, Heraclitus's logos forms the intellectual backbone of rationalism and ultimately of idealism in Western philosophy. From antiquity to modernity, this lineage has persisted. Even in the modern English language, the suffix logi, as in biology, theology, psychology, signifies rational knowledge about, a direct descendant of logos. Today, logos, as the totem of reason, is everywhere, embedded in our science, our language, our logic, and our worldview. Listening to Oracular Philosophy. 2,500 years ago, beneath a star-filled sky and upon a windswept mountain peak, a solitary hermit gazed upward into the heavens. In deep contemplation, he whispered to himself. Let us now listen to his inner monologue and see whether we can decipher the mystery of this ancient oracle. Nature loves to hide. The Lord whose oracle is at Delphi neither speaks nor conceals, but gives a sign. This cosmos, the same for all, was not made by any of the gods or of men, but it always was and is and shall be, an ever-living fire, kindling in measures and going out in measures. All things are in exchange for fire, and fire for all things, as goods for gold and gold for goods. You cannot step twice into the same river. Things taken together are whole and not whole, being brought together and being separated in tune and out of tune, and from all things one, and from one all things. What opposes unites. The finest harmony is composed of things at variance. War is the father of all and king of all. Some he shows as gods, others as men. Some he makes slaves, others free. The way up and the way down are one and the same. It is disease that makes health sweet and good. Hunger, satiety, weariness, rest. In the circumference of a circle, the beginning and end are common. They do not understand how that which differs with itself is in agreement. Harmony consists of opposing tensions, like that of the bow and the lyre. Eyes and ears are bad witnesses to men having barbarian souls. Though this logos is eternal, men fail to understand it both before they have heard it and once they have heard it. Listening not to me but to the logos, it is wise to agree that all things are one. All quotes above are from Heraclitus, fragment DK.